We're in a bit of a remote area, but this is a community that does a lot for Washington State. Grant County across the board is filled with people who work hard, who put food on your tables, who just are amazing human beings in general. We've got technology that's produced here. We have a very long history in Moses Lake of producing aircraft. We were one of the first places where there were test pilots doing crazy things that probably their parents weren't happy about, that kind of thing. Down here in Mattawa, there is wine that is produced. There are grapes, taters, apples, corn, dry-land wheat. All those things are all over the place here. And so we want to make sure that these folks get a chance to get to know who you are, what they're voting for on the ballot, and how you're working to improve their lives, because that's what they're voting for, is the person that they think will give them the best quality of life, right? So, again, thank you for coming down here. I've met with many of you, not all of you as much as I would like. Feel free, I've got cards right up there in the back. Pick up one of my business cards if I haven't gotten one to you already, and reach out to me. I'm sure Tom Dent here will tell you that I'm pretty easy to get in touch with most of the time. And I do tell a few dad jokes, so be fairly warned on that one. But in addition to that, tonight we're here to make sure that voters are informed. That's the main thing. There may not be a lot of voters out here, but what we're going to be doing is distributing all of the information that you put out tonight through multiple channels. So the first thing is we have at the Columbia Basin Herald, the Studio Basin podcast. And we will be publishing this in audio format through that channel as well. Coverage of this will go in Monday's edition of the Columbia Basin Herald. We print 5 days a week. In addition to that, we're going to post it on our YouTube channel so that anyone can go ahead and put that out there. Now, if you put your segment up, I would ask that you also, if your opponent is here, put their segment up. That's how we want to do it, because otherwise you can give the impression that the Columbia Basin Herald is endorsing a candidate. None of the sponsors of this event are endorsing anyone. Our goal is to ensure everyone is informed and everyone can make a vote that matters, right? So, a little bit about the Columbia Basin Herald. We've been in the Basin now for just under 90 years. We include what used to be the Sun Tribune, which served the Mattawa area. We're covering everything from Ritzville over to Othello, over to Mattawa, Royal City, Moses Lake, Ephrata, and we usually go all the way up to the Elmira, Cooley, Heartline community as well. We try and stop about right there because there are 2 small papers on the north end of the county that we want them to stay in business. Small papers are vital to communities being informed, and we're not going to put any of our friends out of business. That's not what we're about. So with that, you might see this young reporter over here. This is Nance Bestman. She is our newest hired reporter, graduate of the University of Montana School of Journalism, and has been helping us really increase our coverage across the region. We also have reporters Cheryl Schweitzer, who y'all are probably familiar with most down here in the Mattawa area. We've also got Joel Martin, who handles all of our lifestyle content now. That's going to be the fairs and community celebrations, things like that we have. And then we've got Ian Bavona, who probably is everyone's favorite. He's the one that covers all the sports in the area. And if you find a way for us to clone him, we would appreciate it. He's covering 12 schools, and most of them have 2 to 4 sports going on at any given moment. But we have been in the Basin for 90 years, and we plan to be around for a few centuries more. So thank you for listening to my spiel. Also, thank you, Andy, and the rest of the group here at the school district for coming down and allowing us to have this in this awesome theater. This is one of the nicer facilities that we've got in Grant County as far as schools go, and we really appreciate your hospitality on that. Are we all set on that issue? Okay. So, just in case, I'm pretty sure we've been here long enough, all of you know, but the restrooms are right outside the door here. There are refreshments right outside. You need a little pick-me-up, that kind of thing. And then when you're going home tonight, I do want to encourage you to be extra safe. The roads in this area are a little bit treacherous, especially at nighttime, because they're a little twisty and they're kind of tied around all of those sandy precipices and whatnot. So just be careful, and we want to know that you made it home nice and safe. So there will be an opportunity for those of you here in the audience to write down questions. We'll try and include audience Q&A if we have time. If not, what we're going to do is use the yellow cards right there in the back that Nance is holding up, supermodel, Vanna White, whole deal. Go ahead and write those down. If we don't get to them tonight, we will use them for future articles in the Columbia Basin Herald. So, and candidates, if you have questions for some of the other races, feel free to jot those down too. Your voters as well as candidates, and your voice matters. So, and please write me, Lee. I'm spoiled and see computer screens more than I see handwriting anymore these days. Rules for tonight's event. The candidates, just to be, fair, none of you have received the questions ahead of time. I'm betting that most of you have a little bit of intuition on what some of the questions might be. At the same time, your responses that you're going to put out and that people here tonight are candid and right as the question is posed. I would ask that you focus your presentations and responses on the policies and practices you would like to implement if you are elected to the office you are running for. And I would also say that mudslinging, like direct mudslinging and name calling and so forth, is not permitted. There's no call for that. We'll keep it professional. Policy comparisons are fine, but remember that statements must be factual. We will be doing the research and fact-checking everything that we hear tonight to make sure that it's accurate. Okay? Candidates will need to remain in the specified time for each question posed to them. Unopposed candidates will have time to discuss their goals and their upcoming term for their upcoming terms and so forth. And I've got a few questions for that. Opposed candidates, what we're going to do is if your opponent is not able to be here, we will place restrictions on them and ask for a short response to the same question so that we can fairly put out the information. So, we're not biased toward anyone. We just want everybody to be informed, like I said. Audience members, please remember that these candidates are all stepping forward, very difficult roles that they're running for as politicians, community members, and whatnot. This isn't easy stuff, and we should appreciate that, even if you don't agree with them. No heckling is permitted. If you want to have a serious discussion with a candidate after the fact, feel free to do so, but remember, these aren't easy things that they're stepping into. So, with that, the candidates, I'm going to go ahead and just do an introduction. If you could just stand up and wait to get things started. First, we've got Jared Sessler. He is Republican candidate running for U.S. Representative for Washington's 4th District. He is running against incumbent Dan Newhouse, who is also a Republican. Dan was not able to make it today. I believe he's on an airplane right now trying to get back to Washington, and they're working on, of course, the budget and so forth. So, but we will pose these questions to him as well and get that information out to voters. And then additionally, Teresa Boyd is here. She is a Democrat and a write-in candidate for that same position. Then Dan Matthews is going to be joining us via Zoom as We're not quite at 6:20. That's when he's set to join in there. But we'll go ahead and let him get that information out when he's there. He is running for Lieutenant Governor, facing incumbent Danny Hack. Mr. Hack was not able to make it today due to a previously scheduled conflict. Tom Dent, right there. Tom is the incumbent and unopposed Republican candidate for Washington's 13th legislative district, representing the Columbia Basin and Olympia. Carrie Isaacson. Ms. Isaacson is a candidate for state senate for District 16, and her opponent is incumbent Perry Dozier. He is a Republican and you are a Democrat, is that correct? Okay. I wanted to fact check myself there, right there on the spot. Phil Fortunato. He did not make it tonight as we had expected. So.
That's the video that we're.
Oh, that's,
yep.
Okay, that's another video candidate?
Yep.
All right, thanks, ma'am. Then Sharon Hanna, Republican candidate for state treasurer, and her opponent is Democrat Mike Pellicciani. Okay, thank you. Matt Hawkins, Republican candidate for Washington State Treasurer. Auditor, yes. Opponent is Pat McCarthy, a Democrat, and she was not able to make the forum due to a scheduling conflict. Nick Brown. Was an Attorney General candidate facing Pete Serrano.
He's our other Zoom.
He's
He's
also
gonna
on
dial in
Zoom?
through Zoom.
At 6:20.
Yep.
Okay. One sec. Then we have Sal Munja. Did I say your last name? Mungia. Okay, and Dave Larson, both running for the state Supreme Court. Bernard, and please forgive me if I slaughter this, Veljasic. Candidate for the Washington Court of Appeals. Then locally we have Amador Castro and Kevin Burgess. And they are voting, or not voting, but running, I'm sure they'll vote too, for Grant County Commissioner for District 1, and David Henderson and incumbent Rob Jones for Grant County Commissioner as well. So, again, thank you all for coming. I believe our Zoom portion is about to start. And which candidate again was this first, Pam?
Dan Matthews, if he's dialed in.
Okay.
It's not.
Then, Mr. Matthews, are you on the line and can you hear us?
It's not.
Well, I think you just go to the next one, and if he dials in, we can ask him to wait.
Okay. All right, so first up, could I get Mr. Sessler and Ms. Boyd on the stage? The microphone is right behind you, Mr. Sessler, and since it's in your hand already, can you start us off with a 1-minute introduction on who you are and what you're about?
Sure. First of all, are we on here? Check, 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 check. Can you hear me? Good. Thanks for everyone coming. Thank you for hosting. Thank you to the Columbia Basin Herald for a great article. Make sure you pick up a copy of that. Lance did a great job writing it. Jared Sessler, 55 years old. Married for 28 years. I'm a double engineer major, a veteran, and strong conservative Christian. Raised 3 kids. We homeschooled all 3 of them. They're 19, 21, and 23. And I'm just not happy with the direction of our country and with some of the choices that our current representative, the incumbent, has made. And I think people of this district are showing that they agree with that. So I'm Jared Sessler, running for Congress against Dan Newhouse. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. My name is Sharisa Boyd. I live in Tri-Cities, Washington. I'm here to run for Congress because I realized in the primary that things didn't work out right. And I decided that maybe I can make a difference. I've raised 12 children. I'm a two-time business owner. I'm a foster parent. I have children with special needs. I have fought the school districts. I have done everything I can to help people live well. My goal, if chosen for Congress, is to support the community. I want to be the type of representative that is present. I want to be here for the people because the people are the face of our democracy, and it means a lot to me. So I hope that I'm chosen. I have a lot to learn, but I'm willing, and thank you for having me here.
Thank you. And as we move into the questions, Pam in the brightly colored shirt right there is going to be holding up that yellow card when you're at the 30-second mark, and she will hold up her hand in a stop sign when you get to the point where you're at the end of your time limit. So with that, Ms. Boyd, the first question that we've got is going to be dams and energy production are big issues in Grant County. What is your stance on preserving Washington's dams, and what will you do to push that stance forward?
I had a chance to visit a dam last week for the first time, and I cannot really speculate on what needs to be done, but I am in support of building an infrastructure that supports the water flow as well as the fish and the economy. We draw energy from these dams, and I'm in full support of this natural energy.
Mr. Sessler.
Thank you. What's the time frame for answering these?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay, great. I actually met with the Columbia Basin irrigators this morning and had a really good chat. I've been studying this for years, following it, and I just want to say, first of all, as most of you know, 60% of our energy production in this state comes from our power generating dams. The dams are very important. We ought to defend the dams. The only people that want to take out the dams have ulterior motives, and those dams are incredibly critical. And this isn't really about the salmon. It's certainly not all about the salmon. There's also, if you look at the lower 4 Snake River dams, each one of them is equipped with not only locks, which allows ships to go up and down so that you can transport goods like grains and various agricultural products up and down the river at a very fair cost while saving tires and fuel and hazards on the road and all that sort of thing. But they're also equipped with these amazing, beautiful salmon ladders for the salmon to be able to get up and down. The interesting thing about it is the 4 lower Snake River dams are equipped with those. The 5th one up is not. But somehow in their genius, they want to remove the 4 lower Snake River dams that have absolutely zero impact on the salmon. And they help because they raise the water levels so that we can have recreation, we can use the water for irrigation, and also for transportation, as I mentioned. So I've got an 8-point plan for saving the dams. January 4th, I only had 90 seconds to answer the question, so I only gave one of the points of that 8-point plan. 20 days later, Dan Newhouse came out with the Dam Act, which included that first point. But he didn't have the other 7 because he didn't know they existed. So anyway, we'll save the dams. I'm very confident in that, and we absolutely should. With the pressure we have on our energy sector and the needs that we have in front of us and for the future, and how close we were just recently to actually having blackouts, we need to make sure we save those dams.
All right, thank you. And if you can field the next question first. Community safety is important. The roadways in rural Grant County are in need of improvements such as widening, additional maintenance, and traffic control devices at dangerous intersections. What will you do in Congress to help with that issue?
Well, I will help make sure that you get good commissioners elected so they can handle the county budget to be able to take care of those roads because it's their responsibility. Is that a fair answer? The roads that Congress would be responsible for would be the interstate highways, not the local highways. And in my experience driving all over this district, the interstate highways are in pretty good shape here. That said, there is a lot that we need to do to make our roads safer. And I'll tell you from my experience traveling to other countries that don't have the same level of priority that America has on our American lives, a lot of those roads are not very safe. And in some cases, our roads here, for example, they don't have the runoff in some places where if you run off, you are literally going to either die or roll your car or something. And so a lot of the new road standards, all the new road standards, they do require that runoff and that safety and all that kind of stuff. And there is quite a bit of work that we could do to widen the roads and provide more runoff. But again, it's a local budget issue. I mean, there's other budget issues that we could talk about, but I feel like that's probably a better question for the commissioners than it is for us.
I'm new here to Washington, but coming from California, we didn't have issues with roads like this. But after driving on these roads, I realized we need infrastructure. We need to build up from ground up, because there are a lot of things when it comes to the roads. As he said, there's no runoff. There are no borders, no boundaries on the sides of the roads. We are losing a lot of children, a lot of teenagers that are trying to drive these roads. There's a lot of safety issues with them, and I would push to put in budget to have roads repaired for the safety of all Americans that are driving these roads.
Okay. And the last question for this particular race. Gang activity is a concern throughout Washington, but especially in Grant County where we have a crossroads with multiple thoroughfares, SR 17, the interstate, and so on, that make drug trafficking and other similar crimes, human trafficking and so forth, a concern. How will you help to combat gang violence within Washington and nationwide?
Well, being an ex-drug addict, I have 29 years clean and sober from crack cocaine. I've lived in that life. I've come from being homeless. I've dealt with drug dealers, drug smokers. I've dealt with all of it out there on the streets. It is my goal to make District 4 safe for all of us. I moved here 7 years ago, and I have watched the crime and the drugs increase. We have people dying on the streets. We have people that are coming up missing. Their family members do not know where they are. I am very active in my community. I help people a lot in the Tri-Cities, and I push for safer streets, not only for our children, but for our vulnerable populations, our elderly. We used to be able to walk the streets at night, walk our dogs. We're not safe in this district. I've watched over the last 7 years. When I first moved here, there was no crime. There was maybe a siren once a month. Now there's crime every day because this district has been neglected. And I am here as a mama bear to take care of the people of District 4 and ensure that everyone has an opportunity to live a safe life in my district.
And Mr. Sessler, same question.
Yeah, it's a good answer, Teresa, and congratulations on overcoming those things. That's incredible.
Thank you.
We need to fix the economy. As all of you know, when life becomes unaffordable, crime increases. We need to secure the border because we've got a tremendous amount of issues with not just drugs and you know, those sort of things coming across the border, but we also have a lot of what I call invaders, so illegals in our country who are dangerous. You know, countries emptying their insane asylums and prisons and sending them to America because we'll take care of them. That just creates danger for us, and those people get into our communities, and it's so we need to secure the border. The other thing I want to say is we've got a serious problem with law enforcement, and we need to fully and completely back and support our law enforcement at every level. One of the concerns that I have is when I was a young kid, just like almost every other young boy, and probably a lot of young girls, at one point in time, I wanted to be a police officer, or I wanted to be a firefighter. And I think that, I'm not sure that that's the case for young kids today, because we've turned those people into enemies. And we have to fix that because that's gonna be a long-term problem for us. We need to respect the police again. We need to give them the tools that they need. We need to make sure that they have the immunity that they need to be able to do their job and not wonder if they're gonna be in jail tonight because of, one mistake that they happen to make. Every one of us has made mistakes in our jobs. I'm not talking about tyrants or people that are purposely, abusing their authority, but I'm talking about legitimate mistakes that police need to be protected from. So we need to arm our police, we need to give them the authority, and what I mean by arm them is give them the authority that they need to do the job. And let me just close with this. The police are not there to keep us safe. If you read our founding papers and the Federalist Papers, there's a thing called the Social Compact. What that means is that each of us in this room, each of us in this community are responsible to keep each other safe. It is not the police's responsibility. Once you violate someone else's constitutional rights, you might as well put your hands behind your back because the police are on the way to put you in handcuffs to execute justice because
Mr.
you've given up
Sessler,
your rights.
the time is
So
up.
thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. And if you would like to reach out to any of these candidates, we will have their contact information included in our coverage of this event. So, do we have Mr. Matthews on the line? No. Okay. So we will continue to move forward. Thank you both. I appreciate you. Very excited meeting you. Ms. Hannah, can you join me, please?
Something's ringing. What's ringing?
Microphone is ready.
Something's ringing. Is the laptop ringing?
As a reminder, Ms. Panic is running for state treasurer, and I will let you go ahead and give your intro. You have 1 minute.
My name is Sharon Hannock, I'm running for state treasurer. A little bit about myself.
Yeah, it's,
I was born and raised in Tokyo, Japan. My father was the liaison between the U.S. and the Japanese government. He was brought over to Japan right after World War II to help set up Japan's constitution and their legal system. So I came out of that environment as an Army brat, and then came to America, I call it, to Seattle, when I was going to college at the University of Washington. There I got my CPA degree, and really I loved the idea of numbers. And soon after that, graduated and worked for another CPA firm and started my own practice. It is from that practice of being a CPA, of understanding numbers, financial systems, taxes, that I want to bring that expertise into the role of state treasurer. There really hasn't been a state treasurer other than 4 years ago, we had one state treasurer that was a CPA that had that kind of expertise in understanding numbers and financial systems. And so I know I'll probably be able to say more about the role itself and further questions, so.
all right. So, you were kind of leading into the first question already a little bit, I think. Just what the question is what is your assessment of the state's current financial situation in general? And what are some things that you would like to see changed about it as a treasurer? 2 minutes, yes.
So the role of state treasurer, which is something not too many people know about, there are 3 main things. One is to do the investments, as we said. The other one is the issuance of bonds. And the third one is just in general cash flow management. So I would say that right now, the investments and the bond structure are very healthy. We have a AAA rating in the bonds situation, and we have a really good investment portfolio. 12 years ago, I ran for the position of state treasurer, and at that time, there were some concerns over the retirement funds of state employees. Over the past 12 years, that's really been fixed, and so we're now in a situation of not having to worry about funding the retirement accounts. And so I think my role right now would be making sure that we continue the healthy aspect of our investments and our bond issues. The third part, though, is cash flow management. Recently, you might have heard that there's an audit report on COVID money. where $1.17 billion has been mismanaged. So, and with that mismanagement, the question becomes what's going on. What it is, and I use the word mismanagement, that they're not really sure where the funds might have gone to. There's funds that have been put in an agency, but it hasn't been spent the way it was supposed to be spent. When you read the audit report, it's an 1,100-page report, it does state over and over again that we do not have adequate internal controls. And that's where the CPA, the finance director, my role, when I set up a private business, when I set up a restaurant, I am looking not only at setting up a cash flow system, cash management, but what we call internal control systems. When you collect money, is it secure? Can we make little procedures so that the waitress can't be dipping into the till and stealing your money? And I know it's all small things.
Okay, and we're at time for that particular question. So the next question is, how would you advise the state's legislative and executive branches on where to most effectively adjust the state's budget?
Part of the role of state treasurer is not to make policy, but I like how you phrased it, where it's helping with the budget. I want to make sure that our legislators have good numbers when they look at make their decisions. Several years ago, I've been down the other side of the mountain. I do go to Olympia and I testify against bills. I was working on a transportation bill with some legislators, and I noticed that when you read the transportation numbers on what is the Office of Financial Management website, I added it up and it didn't add up. So I called the Office of Financial Management and said, your numbers don't add up. By afternoon, it added up. So just being able to make sure that the reports presented on a website, presented to you, the public, presented to the legislators, that they are good numbers. I also know there's a difference between actual numbers and budget numbers. So I want to make sure that if there are questions, are we looking at last year's actual? Are we looking at a projected budget? That they have good information on what they're doing. I don't think that's happening enough right now. And when you don't have a state treasurer with an accounting degree, understanding bookkeeping, understanding financial statements, it is really hard to be able to provide the legislature and the taxpayers with good information.
Thank you. And then the final question that I have is, the state is currently about $22 billion in debt for different purposes. What is Washington's largest debt type, and how do you feel it can be reduced?
The debt, I'm not sure, when I looked at the whole picture, I'm not looking at the special classification of debt type. We do have a portfolio of investments, and they are able to cover, recently they were refinanced, so to speak. And so that I know that there were some issues in the past. I really don't know right now, at this moment in time, that we do have a significant problem as we've had in the past with that kind of problem of the deficit. Some of it is, there is a deficit when you look at budgets, but there is a difference between budgets and real numbers. And I'm gonna have to look into that a little bit more when you clarify that answer.
All right, thank you. That's the last question that I have for you because we do have so many candidates and we're limited on time. But we will be reaching out to discuss some things in addition to this. Representative Dent, could you join me on stage, please? Yeah. All right. If you could just, I know that most of the people in the room probably know you or know of you, but could you just go ahead and give a 1-minute introduction?
Okay, well, thank you, Robin. Thank you all for being here tonight. It's always good to see folks that you represent. And one of the things that first off, I want to say is one of the things that was really passionate for me when I first ran, still is, that I want to be accessible to the people. That's why I'm here, to be accessible. I was first elected in 2014, took office in 2015 in January, and I currently serve on the Transportation Committee, on the Children and Early Learning, Children and Families Committee, and the ranking member on the Agricultural and Natural Resources. I am the chairman of the Aviation Caucus. I'm the co-chairman of the Wildfire Caucus, and serve on various other committees that are legislative. And one national committee that I serve on is SARL, State Agriculture Rural Leaders, and we're made up of legislators from all 50 states and provinces from Canada. We deal with agriculture issues. So, and we try to come together and work together to not have to reinvent the wheel. Maybe we can find things to move forward that we can all move forward with. But I will say that it's an honor to serve you in the state legislature. It's an honor that you really, it's hard to let you know just how that feels inside to be there and represent folks. I pride myself on representing everybody, regardless of your party affiliation. Never let that be a factor if you want to talk.
All right. Thank you, sir. So the first question I've got for you is something that you and I have talked about multiple times in the past. What do you feel you have accomplished in Olympia over your past term, and what do you think you still need to work on? And I know it's 2 minutes, so it's a little bit of a limited time for that question, but we can just hit some highlights.
I have a lot of passions, okay? Always understand that, but I'm very, very passionate about our children, our foster kids, and our child care system, early learning kids. My wife and I were foster parents at one time, and I'm just really passionate about changing that. I was on the bill, and I was the lead negotiator for our caucus to develop the Department of Children, Youth, and Families, which we tried to make a better agency to look over our children's issues and things, and we have accomplished somewhat of our goals, and not all of them. We're still working on them, and that's still on my list, my bucket list to fix is DCYF. Wildfire. I have a real issue with wildfire, and I think there's something inherently wrong with burning up our natural resources. And I think we need to look at that and continue. That's the reason I started the Wildfire Caucus, and Representative Griffey and I co-chair that, working really hard. And the one thing that I'm really proud of, when I first took office, we had like 4 or 5 helicopters that were our complete air support for the state of Washington and wildfire, initial attack, wildfire suppression. And this year, working with the current lands commissioner and the DNR, we had 43 aircraft out there, and that's why we've been able to knock these fires down and not have the catastrophic wildfires that we've seen in the past. And I'm really proud of that. And you know, there's a lot of issues, but the other one that I'm working on right now, and I put a proviso together last year to fund this committee to look at rural mental health and suicide prevention in our rural mental health. And suicide in agriculture communities, in the agricultural sector in the United States of America, is the highest suicide rate in any sector. Okay, and you know what? We all live in an agriculture rural community that is subject to that. And we're looking at this. We had a planning meeting today. We have a meeting every other week looking at how we can reduce those numbers and help folks find mental health and not feel like they have to resort to suicide because they can't understand how to get out of that. Okay, so that's just a few of my bases. I'd like to talk about that for a couple hours.
Yeah, and I think we have over time with the different interviews that you and I have sat through. So, second question is, what do you feel should be done in Olympia to help school districts have more consistent funding sources, especially given increased operational costs such as insurance, substitute teacher pay, and similar operational cost increases?
Oh, you're way out of my wheelhouse there. You know, I don't work on education issues other than early learning, and I am passionate about that. But, you know, I watch their committees work. And, you know, I think we have in the House, there's 20 or 21 standing committees. And some of them are very functional. The folks work together on both sides of the aisle. There's bills that are crafted and drafted, and then they're put on the table, and there's collaboration, and they find answers, and they find ways forward. And then there's some committees, not so much, okay? It's kind of a one-way ticket sometimes, and that's the problem. You know, we have to come together as a group of people, regardless of party affiliation, regardless. When we go there and we're sworn in January every other year, we need to say, we're going to work together and find some solutions and find some answers. And we can do that, but we have to work together. I'm not going to tell you that every one of my ideas is perfect, nor am I going to tell you that my new friend over here, who's a Democrat, and that her ideas are not perfect either. But you know what? I bet we can find some answers working together. She's a foster parent, so see, I know we can find some better ways to do foster parents, okay? And we can do that in our education system. We can work together and find what works, but the next step is We need to come and listen to the people, and you need to tell us what you think would work. Because you're most likely going to pay the bill, right? And that's really, really important as well. And that's where I come back to being accessible. I think that's so important that we hear from you, and that's your responsibility when we have a bill come before a committee, and it's something that's in your wheelhouse. Show up, testify, good or bad. Give us your input. Build a relationship with your legislators so they know who you are and they can remember your name, okay? Because we meet thousands of people. You're gonna have to meet me 3 times before I remember your name. But guess what? Then we start getting somewhere. But see, you have this responsibility too. And we all have to work together. Why do they keep raising their hands back there?
I believe that might mean that
Are they waving at me or what?
What they like. You know, and I will say, a lot of the time, folks do feel that they don't have access to their legislators. But as both a journalist and as a resident, I have never had a representative legislator on any level of government not respond to. So if you have a concern, I would encourage you to reach out. They're way more approachable than you would think. Yes, they've got a lot of power, a lot of responsibility, but at the same time, they're almost always responsive to your needs. So reach out to them. Don't be afraid to do that. You don't have to have a press pass to talk to your legislator. And the last one that I've got for you today, Tom, is recently there have been multiple gang-related shootings in Grant County, including one just recently in Desert Air, that got residents pretty concerned. There was also one at the Grant County Fair. What do you feel needs to be done to fight gang violence in your district, and how will you support law enforcement's gang mitigation efforts?
Well, in the past 2 or 3 years, we've taken away a lot of power from our law enforcement agencies. Last session, we gave them some of it back. We need to give them the power back that they need in order to enforce the laws that are there. Number 2, we've taken the discipline out of our schools and out of our families, and we expect our kids to grow up and exhibit self-discipline if we haven't given them discipline growing up. So if you don't grow up with discipline, how are you going to know what self-discipline is? How are you going to know what that's like in order to do that? And I think we need to look at what society has done in order to do that. Yeah, I hate these shootings. I hate them with everything that I could think of. But there has to be some discipline back in our society, and we have to be able to do this. We just shut down one of Echo Glen, because that's where we were going to send the kids that were in trouble. And we had a child, a 14-year-old kid over in Yakima County that did a drive-by shooting. Fortunately, he didn't hurt anybody. But they had no place to send him because they closed Echo Glen. No place to send him. Okay? We can't do that. Driving by and shooting somebody isn't a slap your hand and send you home kind of a deal. That's a serious thing. And we need to take it as a serious thing. And we need to deal with that. And I really think that we need to put teeth back in our laws. We have to expect our kids to act reasonably and not continually give them passes. And I know the new thing is your brain's not fully developed until you're 25. I get that. I'm on the DCYF oversight board. I get all that stuff, okay? Well, when I was 12 years old, my dad expected my brain to be fully developed, and I followed the rules, okay? And I knew what they were. Maybe I needed some guidance once in a while, and I get that, okay? But we can't just give them a pass because they're not 25 years old. And I think we've done some things that have been a real disservice to our young people. I think it's going to take us a few years to get back, but I think we need to start and just expect more of them. And we saw that. They used to give me the tough kids in the foster program. They bring me some tough kid out there was going to love me real bad, right? Well, about the 4th post hole he dug out on the ranch, his attitude started changing, okay? And he started listening and started talking about life and where we could go. And, you know, we can do those things. We don't have to beat them. I'm not talking about beating some kid. I'm just talking about giving them some direction, some discipline, and let them understand the society expects more than them and to act like them. We just can't tolerate that. And I think it's just going to take a while, but we can get there, but we start with giving law enforcement their tools back.
That's all I have for you tonight. We'll be talking again soon. After all, I need to find out a little bit more about those bison you're raising now, right? And so, all right. Ms. Isaacson, can you please join me up on the stage?
Hello, 1 minute.
Yes, 1 minute
Okay.
for your elevator speech to introduce yourself to the community.
Okay, my name is Carrie Isaacson, and I drove all the way from Walla Walla, Washington to be with you because I understand one precinct is in the 16th, and that's East Waldo. Yay! I'm here. What a beautiful drive, and I'm so happy to be here. I'm going to represent all the people in the Senate. I was born and raised in Portland, Oregon, went to Pacific Lutheran University, good Scandinavian, good Lutheran background, grew up in the church. I'm a woman of faith. I'm also a lawyer. I'm married to a guy who was raised on a farm in Reardon, outside of Reardon, and manages his family farms. So my career has been in the nonprofit sector. I have a law degree from the University of Oregon, but I did work briefly in business. I worked at Frank Russell Company in Tacoma for a while, very short while, and then after law school, I ended up at United Health Group as a vice president in Minnetonka, Minnesota. I've always been interested in politics. I retired from the Blue Mountain Community Foundation in Walla Walla, oh golly, 2020, kind of in the middle of COVID.
We're at time on that question. And then, so my first question for you. Your district is largely, and I mean largely, agricultural, right? So what will you do to support farmers and ranchers if you are elected?
Well, I've spent my life immersed in agriculture, and it's the foundation of our economy. And people love wine, and they think Walla Walla with 150 wineries is a great place, but really it's wheat is king. And of course, apples, like up here. And so agriculture is critically important. Everything that has to do with supporting it must be done. My husband manages his 2 family farms, one's in Whitman County, one's in Lincoln County, and every day we're checking the price of wheat. And I know that I want to be on the agriculture committee. My family had a farm for 100 years in North Dakota. My dad was the off-farm owner, so I had a different perspective. And the Blue Mountain Community Foundation owned a 3,000-acre wheat farm, the proceeds of which supported scholarships. So we have to have transportation, we have to have fair wages for our workers, we have to have strong markets, we have to have all the infrastructure in place so we have irrigation, transportation, and electricity.
All right, thank you. And second question, transportation infrastructure in your district is vital for farmers and ranchers, among others. What will you do to prioritize roadway improvements in your district?
Been here about roads for a long time, and infrastructure road-wise for farmers is critical. You have to get everything to transportation, and you have to get it to your market. I'm very much in favor of keeping the dams, but I'm also very much in favor of planning for the changes that will inevitably come. The future of the dams is in the hands of the court at this point, not the legislature. But I toured Ice Harbor. We really need those dams. I've also, they recently widened Highway 12 to 4 lanes from 2. What a difference that's made for our neck of the woods. And we still have another 8 or 9 miles to go. And I know you have the same issues here with your 2-lane highways. A lot of trucks, they have to have 4 lanes. And I look forward to working with the rest of my colleagues in the legislature to get that money from the state so that the counties have the money they need to build.
Thank you. All right, and finally, what do you feel is the most important issue in your district that needs to be addressed at the state level?
Well, what I hear is healthcare. Where we are, the hospital is closed, our pharmacies are closing, the cost of living is out of sight, and healthcare is a big part of that. We have to have rural healthcare that's available and accessible. I have friends in Walla Walla and Richland. They can't get a primary care physician. Specialty doctors are leaving our area. If you don't have your health, what do you really have? And in our neck of the woods, you have to have helicopter insurance to transport you to Harborview, Spokane, or wherever. And if you've got specialty treatments, you're on that helicopter. That's a $46,000 trip. And I tell new people to Walla Walla, you have your helicopter insurance, and they look at me, appalled. But that I hear over and over again is a huge concern.
All right, thank you. Those are all the questions I have for you tonight, but thank you for coming up. Fortunato make it here? No? Okay. Mr. Hawkins?
Thank you.
Go ahead with your 1 minute intro.
I'm Matt Hawkins, running for state auditor. The primary reason why I'm stepping into the race is because I feel that there's been a lack of transparency as relates to government reporting back to the citizens. I believe that the citizens should have access to all information within government as it relates to the operations and conditions. I find that the issues dealing with our education system, we don't have a finance problem within our education. We have really a process and systems of concern. I think that with regards to our finances, where we do have problems, where we've had 2 reports that come out with about $2 billion in losses, we don't have confidence that that information is exactly what the extent of it is. Is it really $2 billion? Is it more? Is it less? Probably the third part of that is, on the issue of transparency, is I recognize that because of some laws that have been passed in the last 4 years, the governor has the right to withhold information from the public. I think that law is wrong, and I think that the people should have access to all information as it relates to their families, as it relates to their children, as it relates to their taxes and where the dollars are going.
Thank you. So, first question that I have for you is one that has hit Grant County as a community pretty hard. There have been some people moving from one school district to another as a result of it, and so forth. So multiple audits of the Moses Lake School District showed that processes were in place to ensure fiscal responsibility. However, accounting errors and a failing levy have put the district in crisis. What will you do as auditor to determine why the issues occurred despite the clean audits?
Again, I'll go back to what I've learned out of the private sector, 35 years in the private sector, of recognizing that audit reports can go deeper, audit reports can go shallow. I don't know what's been said in the past reports with regards to process and systems to try to rectify the problems on what accounting was going wrong. I know that I could work with a new finance director, our new treasurer, with Sharon Hannick, and with that, I know that as a team, we can try to identify the better processes, the better systems to ensure that the financial issues are rectified. With regards to why schools why the audiences within our schools may be diminished, one of the issues on that is the fact that people are going back to homeschooling, or they're going to homeschool, or they're going to private schools. And I would argue that why are parents pulling their children out of the current public schools? It's got to be because the educational climate is not what they anticipated, or it's not what they bargained for. And I think that we have a clear need within our schools to rectify the methodologies that we're using to teach our schools, teach within our schools so that our children, their test scores actually start climbing. We don't have, in our school systems, we don't have a finance problem as much as we have an output problem on giving our children a good education.
All right, and next question. How severe do you feel waste, fraud, and abuse of government authority and funding are in Washington? And what will you do to address any shortcomings that can be dealt with through the auditor's office?
That's a loaded question. I don't know that there's fraud, and I don't know that there's abuse. What I do know is that there's a lack of information. There's a lack of transparency of information. And I say that when you go to something as simple as just the election system. Now, in election systems, you're not talking about the dollars being lost, but you're talking about the credibility and the trust of the public as it relates to how their votes are cast. And I say that's true because we asked for 3 years ago for an audit, a third-party audit of the election system in Spokane County. And at the time that we were asking for that, the Secretary of State caught wind of that and created a brand new WAC that said you cannot have a third-party audit of your election system. Now, I don't know about you, but in my mind, as a public, we should have a right to audit anything that's in front of us. When it comes to the idea that we have a law in place that says that the election record must be reconciled, and 2 years later, we come in to ask for reconciliation of the record because 5,000 ballots in Spokane County were printed at home. And those ballots were not being reconciled completely into the election record. I say that somehow we're missing something in the process. It's as though government leaders know more than we do, and they don't trust us. Well, I'm here to tell you that as a citizen, I don't trust my government leaders. So if you want to change the outcomes in what you're getting in government, if you want to change the confidence of what's going on, you've got to change the leaders. So I'm here to tell you that I'm there to do just that. I have to wait.
All right, so, final question for you.
Go ahead.
State Auditor's Office is responsible for protecting whistleblowers in a lot of ways. What will you do as State Auditor to ensure whistleblowers are protected and feel safe coming forward?
Well, gosh, I was a whistleblower when I identified the need for a reconciliation of the election on record, and we were completely shut out. So the issue of protecting people coming in, I have no problem with that. I have people coming to me right now off the street saying, identifying to me the things that are going on, and I can't really do anything about it because I don't know where to direct them to. I know that if I'm elected to be the state auditor, I open the door. I'm welcoming the door. I'm welcoming the idea that anyone that wants to petition their government to have access to records or to have the records clarified, I'm here to tell you, I will ensure that that process is there. It's not just the fact, are you an employee of the state or the employee of a county and you're whistleblowing. I'm here to tell you that if you're a citizen and you have a defined need that you think needs to be rectified, I will make sure that there's a pathway for you to get that done. And I will keep it confidential if that's what you want. If you want your name to be out there, I'll let your name be out there. But my point is the people need to know that their concerns are being addressed.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you coming out today. And welcome back home.
Over to the west side.
Yeah. Mr. Brown. Okay. All right. Could I get the state Supreme Court candidates to join me on stage, please? Okay. So hand you the mic because I have here, we're going to go back and forth and each of you gets to trade who hits the question first, right? So, and Mangia?
Mangia, you got it.
All right.
Okay.
Sweet, great. So, can you just give your elevator speech as I put it, 1 minute?
No problem. So, I'm Sal Mangia, I'm running for a seat on Washington State Supreme Court. I've been a lawyer for 40 years. 3 things I just want to tell you about. All of these values came from my parents. 1, fairness. My mom came from Japan, my dad came from Mexico. I saw how they were treated because we didn't have much money and because of the color of the skin. Fairness is very important to me, and I've made that an essential part of my life. 2, hard work. As hard as workers I think that I work, not near as hard as my parents. And I work pretty darn hard. Let me tell you, I've been in private practice for 38 years, been a partner in my law firm. I'm running that law firm as a business, and I can tell you there's a lot of headaches. And I think I worked from before sunrise until after sunset, but my parents worked harder. Finally, 3, following rules. Some people always say that's where you become a lawyer, right? Because you follow the rules. Rules are very important to me, and I make sure that the rules are followed.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. The thing Sal and I have in common, I'm Judge Dave Larson, is that we both come from working families. And I'm very proud of my parents. My dad was an airline mechanic for Northwest Airlines. My mom was a homemaker. So I grew up in Federal Way, essentially. I'm now a judge in Federal Way. I've been a trial judge now for just under 17 years. So I'm in the trenches, all the issues you hear about, I'm there in the trenches. Before becoming a trial judge, I was a trial lawyer for 23 years. I was rated by my peers as preeminent as a trial lawyer. The last gig I had as a lawyer was with a large law firm in Seattle, doing complex civil litigation, cases where you need 25 chairs in a conference room to take a deposition. I went from that to traffic and misdemeanors because I was president of the school board in Federal Way, and our court was in trouble. There's 2 judges there. I went in to help try to fix that court, and I've been there just under 17 years. This year, it's an open seat on the Supreme Court, first time in 12 years. And so this year, the choice between Sal and I is gonna be that of the people and not an appointment by the governor, and then it's gonna actually be a vote by the people this year. And I'm looking forward to the opportunity for the voters to be educated on the courts. They're very important to our existence, and they're underestimated down lower in the ballot. But Sal and I hope can bring some interest to this so that people engage in the process.
Thank you. And the first question, no, go ahead, hold on to the mic. It's your turn to be in the hot seat first.
Hot potato.
Oh, yeah. So, first thing, and within 2 minutes, please, what can the state Supreme Court do to assist with improving the juvenile justice system?
Well, a lot of people don't understand the Supreme Court's roles. A lot of people think just the Supreme Court just makes decisions, but the Supreme Court runs the courts. They create all the court rules. They create they kind of create the expectations. The leaders, they set the tone for our courts. And what the Supreme Court can do is be a messenger both in the way we operate juvenile courts, because the Supreme Court sets all the court rules, including rules for juvenile courts, plus the tone that we're gonna have. Right now, we have this kind of, and we were talking about it beforehand, kind of this, we hope everybody turns out okay kind of approach, and we don't want to detain people, and it's not working out well. And the Supreme Court could take a better role in educating judges and educating the communities, and how we can better approach juvenile justice, because all those people, if we don't do it in the juvenile justice system, are gonna end up showing up in our adult courts and affecting our communities. There's a strong link between education and the courts, the prison pipeline type issue that we talked about. Some of the reaction has been to be too lenient. We can't do that. But you can't also be so tough that you ruin lives. You have to figure out how to reach youth in a way that where we do it in a way where they can have constructive lives, and lives that are based upon some very fundamental principles of how we're supposed to govern ourselves, our ability to govern ourselves. And that's very important. I shared a policy I wrote when I was on the Federal Way School Board about civics and civic engagement and student conduct, and how we should be teaching our children how to live in a free society. And that means responsibility. That means the ability to work with each other to not commit crime. And my motto in my court is I run a repair shop and a junkyard, and that's the way the court should be, a welcoming place to help people live better lives. We can do that in the juvenile justice.
Same question, 2 minutes.
So Rob, when I tell people, judges don't make the laws, right? I got one of my new friend John up there. Judges enforce the laws that the legislature makes. So the legislature sets the rules as far as juvenile justice. The courts have to follow that, whether you like those laws or not. That's up for the legislature, and that's their role. Now, I will say this, because you have to know as well. Our state Supreme Court, we don't have a unified court system. In other words, the state Supreme Court can't tell the superior courts or the district and municipal court judges what to do. They're their own level of courts. Dave is right, the court can set court rules, but that is a pretty limited method, and certainly can't tell the lower courts how to sentence or what to do with juveniles if they break the law. What judges can do, and what I've done as a private citizen, is hopefully try to keep our juveniles out of trouble in the first place. I started this program with my law firm 8 years ago, where we, quote, adopted the first grade class out of a school on the east side of Tacoma. 80% of those kids are kids of color. They're eligible for free reduced school lunches. 10 come from homes without homes. And we adopted those kids. With our goal by grade 3, because if you can't read by grade 3, the end of grade 3, there's a direct correlation of being incarcerated. And so we worked hard. We put books in the school, we put mentors in the school, and let me tell you, I had the most rewarding day, one of my most rewarding days, when they were in 5th grade, because we followed them up, went through 5 grades, and the 5th grade teacher told me, Sal, this is the first year that all my kids were reading at grade level, and you guys were a part of that. That's what we can do to lift them, so we keep them out of the juvenile detention center and hopefully become productive citizens.
Thank you. Excuse me. Access to justice resources isn't always easy, and the U.S. legal system can be difficult to navigate. How do you feel that that can be improved, and what precedent could be set in our state Supreme Court?
Oh my gosh, access to justice is not easy. Are you kidding me? It's very difficult. I will tell you this. I have been involved with access to justice, with trying to get people representation, because it's not a fair fight. If you hire an attorney like me against someone who doesn't have an attorney, it ain't even close to a fair fight. So I've spent my career doing pro bono work, representing individuals, representing families who could not afford an attorney. I've represented a neighborhood group out of Spokane, remember I'm from Tacoma, right? In the Court of Appeals, because they were going up against a developer, they could not afford an attorney. That's not a fair fight. I've spent my career doing that. I've gone down to Olympia to lobby for additional funding from our state. And let me tell you, our state has been great as far as increasing funding for civil legal aid. That is a nonpartisan or a bipartisan issue. The R's and the D's have been great on that. Thank you so much. But we've been increasing those funds so that it can be a fair fight. The court can help with that. I've gone back to Washington, D.C. to lobby our congressional delegation. We usually always have one state Supreme Court justice go with us to open up those doors as well. I will tell you that having a not only pro bono so that people who are 400% or 200% of the federal poverty level can get representation, but having moderate means program. I was the president of the Washington State Bar Association. We started up a moderate means program so that working class people can get representation at a fairly reasonable cost. And finally, I will tell you this, my commitment, I've gone down to neighborhood clinics so that people can come in, working class people can come in and know what their options are and what's available to them. So yes, there are things that can be done and should be done.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's a difference between access to justice and access to judges and lawyers, okay? Access to justice is what we do with each other. The justice system should be involved in a way that becomes accessible, inexpensive, and easy to operate. Right now, we're the opposite. The reason all that money is needed is because we made this system so complex, so burdensome, so expensive that the average person can't afford it. And the Supreme Court, again, in those court rules, and in the bully pulpit they have with the legislature, could influence outcomes in a way, especially in the area of family law. Family law, if anybody's been through that, is a horrible experience. And the legal expenses go way up because of the conflict the system itself creates. I almost walked away from the legal profession back in 1998 because we became so in love with our rules, and it was causing so much more expense just complying with rules and procedures and dogma. So the court itself, and the Supreme Court in particular, and that's one of the reasons I'm running, can be a leader in trying to simplify our systems, so try to make it easier. And the biggest shame is the people that are affected, the working poor and the poor that can't afford lawyers, they're most affected because the signal to the wrongdoers is it's too expensive for you to do anything to me anyway, so I'm gonna continue to screw people over. So we gotta have a system that doesn't need a lot of money poured into it to help people operate. It needs a system that is designed what it's supposed to do. We're supposed to be the peacekeeping branch of government. We've gotten so far away from our role as the peacekeeping branch of government. We're supposed to solve problems and not create more with our rules and our dogma that we've developed over the years. And I've seen it, I started practicing in 1985, 39 years, 1 year short shy of Sal. And I've seen a change in terms of how we practice in the courts. And it's become so dogmatic and so doctrinaire in terms of how we approach things that we don't really serve people. And so access to justice truly means access to true justice and not access to justice.
Thank you. And Mr. Larson, last question.
Sure.
So what do you feel is the biggest challenge in regards to being a judge on the Supreme Court, and how would you address that challenge?
The biggest challenge for being a justice on the Supreme Court is obviously, the main thing justices do is decide the cases that come to the court. The other thing that, and Sal's absolutely correct, we don't have a unified system. We have opportunity on our Supreme Court to use the power of that court, to use the bully pulpit, to inspire courts across the state to develop ways to serve people. In my court in particular, I try to be a model when it comes to crime, when it comes to addiction and mental illness. We have barrier-free access to peer navigators. We emphasize early intervention. We do things that make it so that people can leave with a better life. My motto is I run a repair shop, not a junkyard. The idea is our court system can serve our communities much better, and we need justices on the court to make it a priority. Right now, it's not a priority. We have a Minority and Justice Commission, a Gender and Justice Commission, but we do not have a Behavioral Health and Justice Commission. In fact, the Blake case that was decided a few years ago actually undermined our ability in the trial courts to deal with drugs and mental illness, because basically legalized drugs in Washington. So the challenge for the Supreme Court is to bring those trial courts together to serve people, because right now, especially the area of crime and addiction, is we keep pushing people back and forth. We have a very fragmented system, and I developed systems, and in fact, the gold standard for it is called the sequential intercept model, and there have been projects funded by the legislature that I've developed to help deal with it, and we need somebody on the Supreme Court that's gonna try to champion those things for the trial courts and for our communities. And right now, that's the biggest challenge for our state, and right now, it's going unanswered in the Supreme Court, and we need somebody on there that's gonna make it a priority. And the trial courts, when decisions, the benefit of being a trial judge that I bring to the table is the Supreme Court sits in judgment on the mistakes made by trial judges. I'm in the trenches. I've had to go to the legislature several times to fix the mistakes the Supreme Court's make, because they don't understand how trial courts work. And that's one of the reasons I'm running too, is to be that voice for the trial courts. So thank you.
Rob, I think the three biggest challenges for any judge, I'm gonna go with one. Make sure you follow the rule of law, all right? Not your own personal beliefs, not what you want to see done. You're not in the state legislature. You have to follow the rule of law. You have to do what the federal or the state constitution tells you have to do, whether you like it or not, right? And you have to put aside your own personal beliefs. I think that is very difficult to do. And that's that you always have just got to be consciously aware of making sure you do that. Two, I think that you have to make sure that you can get along with your colleagues. We have a very collaborative court. You know, I think we've lost the art, or maybe we've never had this art. But we know how to disagree without becoming disagreeable. We have different viewpoints. We are stronger when we can bring those different viewpoints together and be able to talk about them in a civil manner. To really try to convince someone, not through personal attacks. I love this kind of going back and forth here right now, because we're not attacking anybody, but expressing your views and then really respecting the views of someone else. And I think that is very difficult to do. It's easy to say, yes, we should respect everybody's views. Examine yourself, because I do it all the time. And it's so easy to label them as them and us. How can they think like that? I think especially for a judge, you have got to get rid of that. Third, and it goes to one of my values, not get lazy, right? As a judge, Dave, you're probably the same way. We know there are hardworking judges, hardworking legislators, and not so hardworking judges, not so hardworking legislators. And I love that what you said, and I think the same thing about being an attorney. Every day I say, I'm the luckiest guy in the world because I'm an attorney. I love how you say I'm the luckiest guy in the world because I'm a state rep. And I think as a judge, you always have to remember that you are serving all the people and that you are so lucky to be in that position.
Thank you. That's all that we've got for this particular race. Thank you both for coming. Mr. Flynn, can you join me up here, please? All right, Tom Flint is running for re-election to the Grant County Public Utility District Board. And right now, the PUD has a lot of challenging things that it's trying to face as it plans for our future. So first thing, Tom, can you go ahead and just introduce yourself to everyone and kind of give a little bit of background information?
Sure, and thank you, Rob, and for everybody that put this together. It's a great opportunity. I'm a fifth-generation farmer, second-generation farmer to the Columbia Basin. As a kid, we came here because of the irrigation district. I can remember hearing my mom and dad said, someday it's going to be the breadbasket of the world. I kind of think we're there. It's been really interesting to see the evolution of our county going from mostly sagebrush to development. And how that all happened was through the hydro projects, the irrigation, and the Columbia Basin project. Oh, well, I guess my time's up.
Well, the yellow part is 30 seconds.
Oh, 30
And,
seconds, all right.
A hand showing a stop sign,
Okay,
that's time.
So long story short, went to Central, got a degree in industrial technology, and they started talking about taking dams out. 1983, I had started the Save Our Dam campaign. A lot of the bumper stickers are mine that you see out there, and my wife and I took 830,000 petitions to Washington, D.C. in 1998. And we haven't reached any dams since then, but they're still trying.
All right, so right now, one of the biggest challenges facing the PUD is getting the rate structure adjusted to benefit the community as best as possible. There are conflicting interests in there between different rate groups and whatnot. How will you look to balance the rate structure as the PUD moves forward with that process when you're looking at the different types of customers that take in power?
That's a good question. The reality is it was the farmers and ranchers that put together the utility district in 1937, which resulted in building Waterpum and Priest Rapids Dam in the early 60s. And the reality is there were the stockholders, if you will, to make this all happen. And so what they're called, we call them our core customers, and that's farmers and ranchers, the residents, and the small commercial mom and pop stores, if you will. And those folks always have the first right of power from one of the Priest Rapids dams. In this evolution of power use, we have to the point where we are today is we pretty well used up all the capacity that we have. And there's a lot of other customers that are out there that want power. We're gonna make sure that our core always has the first right of that low-cost Priest and Waterpum power. And when the core needs more, it will take it away from the industrial customer. And that is part of the information we're trying to work through to make sure everybody understands that. Because a lot of people think the industrials are taking away their power, and it's going to be more expensive in the future. And we have the third lowest prices in the United States. I'm committed to keep us in that state situation. And going forward, those who create the need for power will pay for that need for power, and not the poor people.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned just now that we're at the point we're just about tapped out on power that is produced locally, and I know that there are some discussions on how to expand our generation capability. What do you feel is the right approach to expand our capabilities here in Grant County, and what does that timeline like for you?
Well, I have two ways of looking at that. Long term, I'm a huge proponent of small modular reactors, and the beauty of them, they're extremely safe. They're based on the nuclear Navy's platform that they've used for over 50 years. They kind of look like a pellet stove, a complicated pellet stove, if you will. They're extremely safe, and I think it has a lot of opportunity to be a resource that's in our climate-free or our carbon-free world that will work. I also think that's a 10-year project, so that's not gonna take care of the intermediate things. But I am a huge proponent also of a combined cycle turbine generation with natural gas, and I know the state is steering us away from that. Although in the power world, you will find out that there is no way to get to that 100% reliable energy portfolio, renewable energy portfolio without natural gas. And so there's an initiative on the ballot this year to keep natural gas like we've always used it before, and I encourage everyone to vote.
Thank you. So one of the things that has been coming across my desk quite a bit over the last several months, ever since a particular PUD meeting involving shock and awe, which I know that you're familiar with, is people are frustrated with transparency with the PUD. What do you feel should happen to improve transparency at the district, and what sort of education do you feel is necessary to ensure that the public understands the functions and challenges the PUD faces?
Well, I know exactly what you're referring to, and after that event happened, we actually changed our strategic plan to make sure that we are open and transparent in how we do things. And it's a work in progress, but certainly, like I said earlier here today, we don't want to have anybody thinking that they can't ask questions and get the information. So as far as the educational thing, you know, we do a lot of things in the community, like, you know, we're kind of down here, we have the interpretive center down here with the Wanapum Indians, which has a lot of PUD history in there. We also have the demonstration here at the Wanapum Dam, where kids can come in there and kind of follow salmon through its life cycle and see how we protect them on the dams, and so show them how we do save salmon.
Thank you. I'm not going to grill you too much, Carter. Thank you for coming down. I appreciate it. And I'm sure all the voters appreciate it too. Okay, feedback. Mr. Vilchasik? Okay. Could I get our commissioner candidates to all come up here? I've got the same questions for all four of you, so we can round robin this and make sure that everything gets taken care of. We've got a lot going on in Grant County, which each and every one of these candidates can tell you about ad nauseum, I'm sure. There are challenges we're facing with crime, with animal control, with development, all sorts of things. And so the commission here in Grant County has a lot that it's trying to deal with. So we'll start with our incumbent. This is Rob Jones. Rob, can you introduce yourself? 1 minute.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rob Jones. I live in Moses Lake. I am a business owner in Moses Lake. I own a few different businesses. Some travel the Northwest as well. In addition to that, I'm a multiple property owner from commercial in Moses Lake to residential in Grant County to commercial in Grant County and multifamily in Grant County. And I'm happy to answer some questions with you guys. Thank you for still being here.
Hello, I'm Amador Castro. I am going into my 15th year being a high school teacher. I'm also a small business owner. I have raised two wonderful, successful daughters and currently still raising my third daughter who is special needs, so I'll be raising her forever. One thing I want people to understand and get to know about me throughout this whole process is that I'm a fighter. I will fight for everything that I feel that when I see injustice that happens, I'm gonna be there for them. I have taken on the school board in Moses Lake to fight for the rights of my daughter. I have taken on state agencies to streamline their processes, and I've taken on people's perspective of the students that I serve to change how they view those particular type of students. So I will continue to do that for the people of Grant County and make sure that I fight for everybody and not just specialty groups.
Mr. Burgess. Good evening. I'm Kevin Burgess. I'm running for Grant County Commissioner District 1. I'm a lifelong resident of Grant County. I have been married for 25 years. I have 4 children. We raised a mixed family. I was a foster parent for 10 years. Adopted our daughter, who is now 10, which will be 11 this year. Owned a successful real estate office in Ephrata for 22 years. Had an espresso stand in Moses Lake that I built and developed. We ran that for 18 years before we sold it. Both of my older boys are in business in Moses Lake. One owns a machine or repair shop on Broadway. The other one has a container business in Moses Lake. My youngest stepson is a lineman, and my daughter works for the state in the foster care agency.
Hi, I'm David Henderson, 57-year resident in Grant County. Been married for 37 years, 3 children, 10 grandchildren. I love this county. I've been in sales management, business development my whole life. I currently work for a quite large energy company, sell fuel, lubricants, and growing in the market. I deal with a lot of customers in this market, the whole county, Adams County, Franklin County, Lincoln County, and they have a lot of concerns that when I talk to them about how things are being run, no transparency in the government, no accountability, and they would like to see things changed, and I'm here to do it.
Okay. And Mr. Castro, if you could take on the first question first. What do you feel can be done to improve transportation infrastructure in South Grant County? It is dangerous. We report regularly on accidents in this area on a constant basis. So what can be done to improve that situation?
You would ultimately have to work with the roads department or the public works to see, how we can improve the roads out here. Honestly, I don't know everything because I'm not in there and I haven't really got myself to know all the processes and how everything works. So once I'm in there, then that's something that I would look into to see what I can do, because I'm never going to be a person to make promises and say things that I can't actually perform on.
Mr. Burgess?
So I met with Sam Castro last week just before he left, and he has processes in place right now with the road department where a lot of our county employees are out there doing the work, saving us a lot of money. So I would continue with that. I think that we need to we need to do a good job as far as our new public works director and finding a good replacement for Sam. I think that's gonna be a tall order. And, I think that's where we have to start, is a good director for our, county, our public works.
Mr. Henderson?
Well, selling fuel trucks probably outnumber hay trucks in Grant County. Where's all this tax dollar going? For every load of gasoline that I sell into the market, there's over $5,000 in road tax. For every load of diesel, there's $4,900. We need to go to the state and say, look at the money that we're spending on fuel in this county and fight for more of that money, get some grants, get these roads fixed, because you get off the main roads, there's fertilizer trucks, hay trucks, milk trucks, they're on some of the smallest, sketchiest roads you've ever seen, and they have to travel them every day. And they're the ones buying the fuel. Why don't we repair the roads that they're on? We need to fight for that money from the state, because they're spending it.
And Mr. Jones?
So to touch on what Dave just said, the county has basically taken about a $600,000 cut for 2025's budget in motor fuel vehicle sales tax. And that has a lot to do with more efficient vehicles and electric vehicles. In District 3's area, the majority of fatality accidents are taking place on state highways, not on county roads. However, we do score and look over all those roads, and if there are enhancements that can be done, we support them fully, because it is the highest area of our traffic accidents in the county.
All right,
Can I
thank
give
you.
another comment on that?
I believe he was under time, is that right? Yeah, go ahead.
I think that the decrease in funding is coming from the Climate Commitment Act. I mean, there's so much money in a price of a gallon of fuel that's going to the Climate Commitment Act that the state of Washington can't tell you where it's being spent. People can't buy more fuel. They're limited, so they're not buying as much fuel, so that's hurting our local taxes on the road taxes, because they're not putting in enough fuel. And, 30 to 50 cents of that's going to the Climate Commitment Act. Why don't we fight for some of that money? Because they can't tell us where they're spending it. It's not going into green energy. It's not going into windmills. It's not going into solar. Where's this money?
Thank you. So, solid waste services in the less populated portions of Grant County are inconvenient. And what can be done to better serve residents of those areas, including Mattawa and Basin area?
I wish I could say I was surprised this was a question. So this has been brought up a lot of times since I got elected in 2020. In 2021, we closed the Cooley Dam drop box, and then they ended up taking it over and running it out of there. That's the highest cost per ton, probably in that region, so they could operate that one. The issue that we had as a county in Desert Air, Mattawa area with having the drop box was it was losing money. And at the time, the Public Works Director really pushed hard on us understanding that it needed to not be open to operate. There has been some discussion of other options, other opportunities. At the time that the board made the decision to close that location, we were under the understanding that someone else would be opening the transfer station up in the same location. That has not taken place as of now. And the county is still looking at that when they are reviewing the solid waste plan.
So I've been talking with some people about this, especially in this area, and I would like to see what we can do to get that transfer station open in this area, because it's hard for people, especially with the roads the way they are, to drive all the way to Moses Lake to a transfer station, or to be afraid of just to dump their excess trash. So it would be nice if there was a way that we can work together to open up a station here locally that would benefit the area.
So I just had a meeting with Sam Castro again before he left. We went over this problem, or this issue, about the landfill. it's my understanding that we're currently charging less than what it costs for us to manage our landfill, which I feel is a problem. Unfortunately, it's gonna cost the citizens more money to keep the landfill going, but where else are we gonna take our trash? So we have to figure out a way. We're gonna have to increase our rates or do something to keep our landfill going. Maybe we need to do a partnership with somebody to open up a transfer station down here, or we can figure out a way to build a transfer station out here where we have property currently, excuse me.
Trash is definitely an issue. Drive all the county roads, nobody's taking their trash to the dump. Refrigerators, mattresses, garbage, it's all ending up on the county road. You go anywhere in this county, and you'll find it piled up. We've gotta get it figured out. You know, the landfill, short term, we're gonna have to increase area that we have, that we can put more trash, but I think long term, we need to look at, like they did at Airway Heights, let's incinerate. You know, that is clean, it's quiet, it doesn't smell, and it can pay for itself. I mean, you could even bring in trash from Adams County, have them pay us to incinerate to help pay for that with an ROI.
All right.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah.
When I spoke to Sam Castro about that, he had already talked to the Spokane County incinerator, and he's telling me that we have to have a population of 500,000 in order to make an incinerator work. So that's just not going to be the right answer.
Okay. Hold on to the microphone. You can field this next question first. So, healthcare, I'm sure all of us know, we mentioned that it can be difficult to find a primary care provider in Grant County, but especially when you get to the more rural areas, down here on the very south end of the county and up on the far north end of the county, healthcare is hard to obtain. And there are, you know, just like was mentioned earlier, folks have to buy helicopter insurance to get to a trauma center. What do you feel could happen, and what can the county do to help the, you know, different hospital districts and so forth provide easier access to care for our residents?
That one's definitely out of my wheelhouse. I don't know how the county can help, other than, you know, I don't even know. I don't know the answer to that question. Work with Samaritan Hospital and the clinics around here to figure it out, I suppose. Have some meetings with them and talk about what the issues are and come up with a solution.
I agree with Kevin. We just have to be unified and collaborate with each other, all the agencies that are in this, and try to figure out what we need to do for the communities. I mean, because we definitely need to do something.
Mr. Jones.
So the county with ARPA funding was able to support some of our local, smaller rural hospitals like Cooley Medical Center, giving several $1 million out overall to everyone. So there was opportunity to be helpful with ARPA funds, but in order to continue into the future, it's going to take working together with the hospital district commissioners overall.
So I would, again, I have no clue, but I would work with the different hospital boards to see how we can support, you know, opening up new clinics or facilities around here. But I will say this about the helicopter insurance. A year ago, I had a heart attack, and when I was in the hospital, they asked me if I had helicopter insurance because they were going to fly me out. And I said, no, I don't. They said, okay, you just have to sign a minute before we put you on that helicopter. So people don't actually have to carry that. Tell a minute before.
Okay. Talk to your agent about anything on that particular level. That one, I'm reaching that age where I got to watch out for my ticker. I want to make sure that we're all careful with that. So the next issue has been kind of a hot button issue across the county. Go ahead and hold on to that for a minute. So animal control is a serious issue countywide. There are hundreds and hundreds of dogs that are stray, not taken care of. We have animal hoarding situations, all sorts of just kind of sometimes insane stories that we write for the paper regarding the issue. Grant County Animal Outreach is going to get a new shelter, but even once it opens, it's likely to hit capacity fairly quickly. What else do you feel should be done to improve the animal control situation in Grant County? And how can the county commission look at that to better manage those issues?
Okay, so I'm a huge supporter of Grant County Animal Outreach. I love what they do. So this is important to me. I think if there was a way, and I don't know, because again, I need to understand all the processes, but if there's a way to, make sure, or hold clinics where people can get their pets spayed and neutered, so there's not this constant breeding of animals, then there's less likely to be strays, because people aren't just dumping them in different farms and different areas, or trying to sell them, and then when they can't sell them, they just get rid of them. So if find a way that we can, help navigate that, I think that would solve a lot of the problem.
And Mr. Henderson? I'm trying to juggle it around so everybody kind of gets an even hot seat.
Well, in my neighborhood, it's not the dogs, it's the feral cats. And I see new ones every week, and they come out at dark, and they go back home when the sun comes out. And what can we do? We've got to figure out a way to get that population under control, be it through donations to get, people to spay their animals. It's gonna be another thing that we're just gonna have to sit down at a round table and collaborate and try to come up with the best ideas and conclusion to get it under control. But as long as these feral cats and wild dogs are on the street, they're gonna keep populating. That's what they do. So we've got to figure out how to get them under control.
That's a sore subject. I had many of my chickens killed, goats killed. This morning I ran out 3 stray dogs. I don't know how we educate people to keep their animals in their yard. There's got to be some way. Enforcement. I don't see any enforcement at all as far as stray dogs. I live in the county, so there's no rule. So it's very difficult, and I don't know what the answer is. I don't know how the county commissioners can help educate people to manage their pets.
And Mr. Jones?
Well, a lot comes to mind on this because I work on this a lot, but there's a lot of parts to that. Currently, City of Moses Lake, Grant County have put up $1 million in ARPA funds for a new facility. So the facility will get some improvements, and hopefully from there we can do some better options like spay and neuter clinics. The county has supported spay and neuter clinics, whether it's funding them or donating our fairgrounds to use as a facility. But really, as Tom said earlier, to the community, if it's a real issue, it has to be brought to us repeatedly and pushed that, yes, I want you to use our tax funds to fix this issue. And if that doesn't happen, then we're juggling roads or solid waste or mental health or the law and justice budget. So really focusing on what you want to see happen in priority is number one. As far as helping, I think that we're on track to be helping the problem with some enforcement, with some code changes, start to not allow selling puppies on Stratford Road. Hopefully the city can work on that, and then the county can then adopt that same type of policy. As far as law enforcement, obviously that's a sheriff question, but we could definitely do better with licensing. The county had licensing right before I was elected in 2020, and they did away with it because nobody was enforcing it. So it really takes a taxpayer saying, we want this issue fixed, we want you to work on this, please pay more attention to this. You can apply to any of these questions that have been asked, and something will happen.
Okay. Bonus question. So, once again, we've talked about it a few times. violence tonight, gangs, fentanyl, and crime. What can the county commissioners do to support the sheriff's office and local police departments in their efforts to curb, especially gang violence among our youth in Grant County?
Oh, man. So currently what we are doing is we are supporting it with funds. So $25 million goes to the sheriff's office in jail. So that's a big thing. We're supporting new hires in the sheriff's department that focus on gang and drug task force. We brought that in just recently. It's only been in place about a month. So what we can do is we control the budget. That's our involvement in that. So when the sheriff comes to us and pitches a cool idea or a strong idea or something that the communities need, we can support it. That's what a commissioner can do, and we can adjust the budgets in order to support it. I believe since I've been there, the sheriff's budget just keeps growing. I don't know who knows, but in 2022 it was big about the correction officer wages. We doubled their wages in 2023. We have been big supporters as a complete commission on helping law enforcement in Grant County.
Mr. Henderson?
The homeless and drug activity, especially in Moses Lake, I this week witnessed two customers that I dealt with on camera through 3 different nights, and where people are being brought in cars, a van, they're being dropped off, they have luggage, they're doing drugs on the facility. I don't know why they're bringing them into Moses Lake. It's a drop site. You look at it, there's more and more new faces on the streets of Moses Lake that are homeless. I was out fixing a campaign last Saturday. When I stood up, I had a guy right in my face. Yeah, pretty scary. But we've got to keep funding the sheriffs, like Rob said. We've got to give them money to get it under control. The drugs, there's a new population of young girls walking around Moses Lake. They're well dressed. They considered homeless. I think they're pushing the drugs, and that's what people downtown, the business owners think as well. One business right downtown had 2 overdoses. They had Narcan within 50 yards of each other in a matter of 20 minutes. And this stuff is just happening out in public, so we have to do whatever we can to get this under control. And if we need to fund the sheriff more, and even fund them more to get them out in the rural areas like here, I have customers in Mattawa constantly getting fuel stolen. Nothing ever happens. We need to have the enforcement to get this under control.
This is a serious problem. My son yesterday had a homeless person across the street at one of his commercial rentals, chasing a lady, one of his tenants, threatening to kick her, hit her, ended up throwing a water bottle at her. He chased this guy around for a while before he lost him. Then he went down the street to a friend of ours' business, was beating on her door, and she called 911. The cops show up, the guy takes off, my son chases him to Michael's on the lake, and he runs down to the trail. So my son told him that's where he's at. They finally caught the guy. 5 warrants out for his arrest, and they were able to take him away. And then they said, "Oh, we've been watching this guy." So the police know who they are. There was another incident where a guy's motorcycle was stolen. So he went to the camp behind the movie theater. He went down there, took his motorcycle back, and there's a guy in there that they call the mayor, and he says that there's a truck that comes into that place twice a week, brings the drugs in, loads up stolen goods, and takes it back to Yakima. I'd like to know who that truck is, and I'd like the police officers to watch that area.
All right. So I've walked the walk with these students that are, people label as the gang kids and everything else. So I know where they're coming from. I really support with the money for the sheriffs to do what they're doing with in light of that, like with the gang kids. So What I would really love to see is a facility opened up where we can house these kids when they do commit crimes. That would be wonderful. I mean, if ultimately we can have something, that way we don't have the issues of people committing crimes and then having no place to go, right? I would love to see money going to the sheriff's office that actually produce a task force that can get into the schools and teach these students that there are different paths that they can learn to take, rather than sooner, you know, 3rd or 4th grade, because that's when it's more impactful in their lives, and then they can learn from that moment on that there are other avenues to take, and we can prevent a lot of this stuff from happening when they become teenagers. I mean, that's when it's most impactful in a student's life, is those younger ages, and so I would love to see funding for that, so we can get these police officers and the sheriff's office inside of those schools, working with our students and changing the outcome of their life.
All right, so I have one final bonus question, because I want to leave this on a positive note. We've tackled some pretty serious, you know, issues in the discussions that we've had throughout tonight, but Grant County is a great place to live. I'm sure you'll all agree. So, Mr. Burgess, if you can get us started, what is your very favorite thing about living in Grant County?
Everything. I can go 20 minutes and go hunting, fishing. I mean, there's recreation everywhere. I love this community. I'm on the Fair Advisory Committee, and I spend all week at the fair and all year preparing for the fair. It's just a wonderful place to live.
I agree with Kevin. I mean, anything outdoors, you know, driving around in the evening, seeing deer, you know, it's nice and cool after a hot summer day. You know, you can smell the alfalfa. I mean, that's a good feeling. You got the window down, love it.
The scenery, honestly, like this summer I had some Japanese students here, and I get to take them all across the county just to see the vastness of it, and they love it, and I just love showing it off because it's beautiful. You can go anywhere, whether all the way up north or down south, and it's beautiful. You're gonna see different scenery, and so I love it.
I like the opportunity the most in Grant County. There's so much new industry and technology and opportunity for students, your kids, yourself to expand what you're doing. It is beautiful, from the basalt columns to the lakes. It's just a beautiful spot.
Thank you all. I appreciate all of you coming down here. I know it's a bit of a drive from Moses Lake or wherever you happen to call home. But at the same time, like you said, it's a beautiful drive. This is our last race for tonight. I appreciate so much everyone coming over. We had people coming from all across Washington State to come together, and everyone tonight behaved professionally. There was no mudslinging, and we know what the policies are that folks are wanting to push forward. So, thank you. I appreciate it. Be safe on your way home. Pam, did you want to say anything before we head out?
You can talk. It's one of my favorite last
Just one quick thing. We feel like we're the redheaded stepchild down here in South County, so the fact that you guys, come down here is really important. And we've worked really hard over the last couple of years with the chamber, with the port, to build those relationships. And the love that we've gotten from just the sheriff going through the recent tragedy has been outstanding. Tom, when you talk, the stuff that you talk, you really do walk the walk. He's been down here in our community multiple times. He even sends his wife to come down and judge for the shade. We've taken kids over to Olympia. We've taken board members over to Olympia. So the fact that you've come down here is great. It stinks that they moved our football game, so the stuff you're hearing out there, we got a football game going on because we can't get referees, so we got Thursday night lights. My son's playing, I'm missing that game. My other daughter's up in Wapato playing soccer. So it's a crazy night, but we're gonna publish this everywhere we can on the chamber, on the school district website,
we've got about 5,000 followers, so we'll get that out because your time is really important. I do appreciate the guys in the back being here tonight, and I wish that we didn't have a game mode. I'm sure we would have had more people. So thank you, and good luck. Good luck in November.
It's very, very difficult to compete with pigskin. It's just, it's just the reality of life in America today. Keep an eye out, ColumbiaBasinHerald.com. We'll have coverage of tonight's event up. It'll probably be broken into multiple stories. Nance will be a very, very busy journalist, over the next few days. Also, the Othello Fair is still going on. If you get a chance to head out, go ahead, go out and enjoy that. If any of you have an idea or feedback on the paper, anything like that, please, editor at ColumbiaBasinHerald.com. We're happy to hear from you. I don't care if it's good news, bad news, or, hey, Rob, you missed a typo in that story on page A4. I don't mind. It's all about me learning and accepting critique and getting better, right? On top of that, thank you, Pam, for a heroic effort to invite folks out here, get the information out, and just get all of this coordinated. This wouldn't have happened without Pam Thorson going out and working her tail off. On top of that, just thank you to all of you again, and be super safe on the way home. It's going to be dark, the roads are windy. Just take it slow and enjoy the ride. Maybe put on some tunes, whatever you got to do, but get home safe. And with that, I'm going to shut up because I'm just going to end up battling for a while if I don't. So, thank you.